YouTube.com/Tim Westwood TV.
Yo, peace, what's up, y'all? This is Common. And I started off with the name Common Sense. I chose that name because I thought it was something that was original and unique, but not too far out. And I came from Chicago, South Side young brother, you know, just enjoying myself, kicking it around the streets of Chicago a little bit, but at the same token, always going to school, trying to learn something. And that's how I came up with my first album, Can I Borrow a Dollar? That album, I started writing it in Chicago, and then I went away to school for a minute, to college for a year and a half, and was finishing it up, you know, and some of the songs that ended up being on there came from my demo tape. My next album was called Resurrection, and I think I entitled it that because I felt that people weren't aware of me. So this was a new rebirth, you know, and Resurrection was like a step into common sense, really knowing like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my career. I'm gonna make a living being an artist, being an MC. And my producer, No ID, and Twilight Tone also, they produced my first album, and they produced Resurrection. No ID did the majority of it. He had really got into his groove, really got into digging in the crates and started learning a lot about just samples and good stuff. And we were heavily tribe influenced and definitely influenced by all the good hip hop out there, really. But we took our music to some type of Chicago jazzy sound, and I improved my MCing, and from Resurrection, I came with the song I Used to Love Her, which was one of my most, I don't want to say popular, but one of my classics, if I could say, you know, one of the songs that people know me by. And I wrote that song one night, I was sitting up late, it was like 2 in the morning. My guys had just got through having a little fun, you know, doing what they do. And I remember sitting up thinking about hip-hop, and I just decided to make it a girl. I said, man, let me write them. When that idea popped in my head, I was like, oh, that's going to be fresh. And I just, man, I had so much fun writing that song I Used to Love. And just the whole Resurrection album was like, definitely like just fun to write. And it was just me, MC. It's almost like when somebody going through that transition, you could see them being born. And that's what Resurrection was. And then from my next step on the journey came, it was a big change going on because the name Common Sense I no longer could use because it was a group that had the name and they tried to sue me for the name. So I was like, oh man, I wanted to go smash them, but I couldn't do all that. So I just had to take it out in my music and do the best I could do. The next album, One Day It All Makes Sense, it started spurring from that period. And also another big change that was going on was I was about to be a father, you know. So with me being a father, I'm like, man, life is, you start looking at life in a new way, a different way. My spirituality was growing. I was digging into different things. I always was raised as a Christian, as, you know, going to church, but then I started reading more of the Quran and checking out Buddhist books and just really, you know, this is what helped shape me and help me to become who I am, you know, through some of this growth. And I just started writing things. A lot of it became serious. And I also started wanting the music to go somewhere else, musically. Like I remember Outkast at that time had really taken their music somewhere different. I was like, man, I want to use some live instrumentation. And we did that on One Day It All Makes Sense. And one of the songs that really meant a lot to me on that album was Retrospect for Life that I did with Lauryn Hill. And she co-produced the song, and it was like, I remember just calling her up, and she was just like, man, let's do it. I was so enthused that she wanted to work, and she really put her heart and soul into it, directed the video and everything, was teaching me how to act, even though my acting was whack in the video. But we had a good time, man, and that was One Day It All Makes Sense. Now, Like Water for Chocolate, Common's fourth album, was something that came from me working with Jay Dilla, the greatest producer, God bless his soul, man, just one of the greatest producers ever. Me going to Detroit, me listening to Slum Village, me inspired by Fela Kuti, me moving from Chicago and moving to New York, and really just really coming into my own and saying, man, this is who I am, trying different things out. Now, I'd always been one of the cats that around my hood that was unique and just like if we all was rocking baseball hats, I would try to rock this way different one. So by the time I got to New York, it was like, man, you could just be as free as you want to be. So my music came out that way with Like Water for Chocolate. And that album created one of my biggest songs ever called The Light. I just wrote that as a love song, you know, talking to a woman that I felt had an inner light that was bright. So, you know, a lot of people ask was it to somebody specifically, but I had somebody specific in mind, but it wasn't just to that person. So that was The Light, and the Like Water for Chocolate album really meant a lot to my career. It was like a turning point too. And then we went to Electric Circus, which was like a result for me. Electric Circus was like, I did The Light, I did Like Water for Chocolate, and we were very successful. I was looking for something new that would really excite me, get my mouth watering. I started listening to Jimi Hendrix, and I had never checked them out like that. I started listening to Pink Floyd, and I was like, I'd always been in the stereo lab, so I've been checking these groups out, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna take this music wherever I want it to go. Like, there's no limitations to hip hop. And Electric Circus was that expression, that freedom. You know, it was colorful a lot, and Electric Circus did get some ridicule from some critics, and that was one of the first times that I really got criticized. You know, it was kind of a good challenge for me, and from there, man, I just picked myself back up because I felt like I got knocked down. Even though I will say this again, I'm proud of Electric Circus, and I'm proud of that album. But from Electric Circus, I went, and after all the ridicule and different things that went on in my life, me and Kanye, who I had known Kanye from working with my first producer, No ID. Like, No ID was like teaching Kanye when we was, in Chicago. He was teaching them things. So we did the album B. B was like a rebirth. Some people called it the new resurrection, but I don't think any album I've done really repeats is a repetition of a previous album. But B had the essence of just the core hip hop, soulful hip hop that people were used to hearing from Common, but it had a new thing to it. It had a new energy with Kanye being there. The songs just were really shaping up. We came with The Corner, we came with Go, we came with Testify. It was like songs that really, I just remember being in the studio and cooking this album up, feeling like, man, I love hip-hop music. And what Kanye was so enthused about doing and so passionate, it kind of translated to me just being and believing more in what I wanted and really claiming it. Then next, Finding Forever, y'all. That was like after the success of B, Ye and I went back in, started cooking up. We were cooking up all over the world, really. We started in Australia, in New Zealand, and then Australia. Went to Spain, went to all these different places, man. I ended up doing my album like in LA too and in New York, but it was kind of international work because Ye was touring. And that album, I just was like, man, Finding Forever. Let me just create music that's gonna be timeless. That's always what I wanted to do, and that's I felt like I had accomplished that in certain ways. But let me claim that and say to declare that that Finding Forever is what I want my music to be, forever music. And now we have arrived to Invincible Summer, which is an album that really is like, I started creating this album at the end of February with the Neptunes, and I was just really thinking about doing an EP. But I said, the title Invincible Summer came from me just being like, man, like I was just enjoying myself out here actually in England, going to these parties, and I was like, and I remember getting a quote from my friend that said, in the depths of winter you will find the invincible summer. And that just made me think about feeling good, like no matter what. So the feeling I felt being in those clubs and just enjoying music was a feel-good feeling. I was like, that's what this album is going to be. So Invincible Summer just started getting cooked up with me in the Neptunes, and then I got my man, Mr. DJ from Atlanta, who did a lot of work with Outkast to start cooking it up with us. Man, and the album we just took it places. So that's the story of, you know, where we are right now. And each album always represents a moment in my life. It's like it's like me when you look back at pictures of yourself and you see, man, that's where I was at that time. I had a high top. Oh, I had on this big coat or whatever. You know, it's wherever I am at that time is what you go get in my music, and that's what you go get in that album. So hopefully my story and my body of work, you can see the evolution and the growth. And, you know, God willing, I'll just keep growing and keep creating. So that's where we at with it. The story of Common. You dig?
YouTube.com/Tim Westwood TV.